Hi, I'm Mike Raine here with Canadian Musician Magazine. I'm sitting here with Bernie Finkelstein, founder of True North Records and a true legend of the music industry, not only in Canada but internationally as well. And first of all, just how are you doing today, Bernie?
Oh, it's been a good day so far. I enjoyed this keynote address here at the Folk Alliance. It was fun morning.
Very good. And I guess during your keynote you did a lot of looking back, but I'll start by kind of looking forward first. You've obviously now been in the industry for 4+ decades, going back to the founding of True North in '69. But at this point, I know you're not in the industry as much as you were at one point, but is there anything now that you see that's exciting you, especially on the folk side of the industry, that's exciting you going forward?
Well, you're right. I mean, I don't spend a whole lot of time examining what's going on. Sort of semi-retired. I still work with Bruce Cockburn. But I think that it's quite notable that over the last 24 months that bands like the Lumineers, Civil Wars, Ed Sheeran, he's not a band, Mumford and Sons, of course, Mumford and Son. Acoustic music is having a bit of a renaissance right now. It'll be interesting to see where it all ends up. So I noticed that for sure.
And as when you founded True North in '69, like you were talking about in the keynote, you didn't necessarily start your career in purely folk side of the industry, the acoustic side of the industry. You kind of started on the rock and roll side with the Paupers.
Yeah, well, I got into what we now look back on and say is the Canadian music industry, but when I got in, I never even heard those words, Canadian music industry, until the 70s. But I started off in '64, got rolling in '65, and between '65 and '69, the two acts I worked with were both rock and roll bands, the Paupers and Kensington Market. But in 1969, when I started True North, the first couple of acts I signed were Bruce Cockburn and McLauchlan, and then later Dan Hill to management. So I was very involved at that point with what we now would call singer-songwriters. However, even at True North, as time went by, I signed Rough Trade, pretty rock band, Barney Bentall, and the legendary Heart. So, I'm a fairly eclectic taste, but, I think, part of my heart is reserved for solid acoustic music.
That kind of got to what I wanted to ask about. Obviously, like you mentioned, the very beginnings of True North were definitely on the acoustic side, but as time went on, I guess you expanded stylistically in the artists that you were signing. Was that a conscious decision or something that sort of just happened because of your taste?
You mean changing directions? Yes. Or adding directions? Yes, I think is more. Yeah. I don't think I ever changed. I just added on. My taste, and I didn't want to keep on doing the same thing. And, to some degree, not to talk about it too mechanically, but you end up with inventory in a funny kind of way. I don't mean pressed records, but you can't keep on knocking at the same people's doors with the same things. So, I wanted to, I think things complement each other. So when I signed Rough Trade, whose first hit was a song called High School Confidential, it really helped the more acoustic music we were doing because it opened up new doors, and, you're able to some degree, cross, is fertilize the right word? I don't know. It sounds a bit risque, but you're able to cross things, and it was all very helpful to. I think it helped each act. So, and I have a restless spirit about music. I don't like to get too locked in for too long, but yeah. So that's why, really.
Okay. And I guess with the new memoir that you're here promoting, you've been doing a bit of looking back or retrospective of your career. I'm interested, when you were writing the book, did anything come to light, any revelations or surprises about yourself, your career, or the industry that you just didn't realize or didn't think about before then?
Well, one of the things that, and it had to do more with, my own writing in a way is that when I wrote I've got to say, if you would have asked me what's your book going to be like before I started writing it, I thought it was going to have more of I thought I might use it as a soapbox to kind of say what was wrong with things. That's what I thought I might end up doing. But as it turned out, the parts I enjoyed writing the most, and as a consequence, because I enjoyed it the most, it's what mostly is in the book, was just the thrill of discovery of new things. Like, I mean, it didn't always work, but, going to Nashville and trying to convince Epic Records that Farmer's Song by Mary McLauchlan in 1972 was a country song, or strange things like that, or working with Rough Trade and, being involved with an artist that had come out of the closet before there was, any of that had happened, all these kinds of adventures. And I enjoyed writing. So what I think surprised me is just how positive I felt about the music business. That surprised me a little bit because, when you're in the middle of it, it's kind of like at best a 50-50 proposition. But when I wrote the book, I went, yeah, I mean, I didn't always like everything I did, but I kind of just generally went, wow, what an adventure that was, and aren't I lucky? Yeah, so that surprised me.